If you are a woman who has been training in the gym for years, you're so consistent, but you still don't feel like your body is changing and matching up with the effort that you're putting in the gym, then sit your fine ass down, because I'm going to run through all the ways that we can fix this to get it so that you actually start to see your body change whilst you maintain your consistency. Let me start by saying this is something that I see time and time again and is in fact super common, and there's usually a couple of reasons that we need to look at and fix so that we can unlock your best physique potential. Number one is that despite training consistently, you are not progressively overloading enough, which means you're not actually building as much muscle mass as you think you are and that you are physically capable of doing. So this is something that we need to fix with inside our training. I know that the narrative around women's training is often, don't lift heavy weights because you're gonna get bulky, do lightweight, high rep. The thing is, it doesn't really matter what rep range you use. You can build muscle anywhere from 5 to 30 reps. One of the biggest things that is going to dictate whether or not you actually build muscle mass is your proximity to failure. That means how many good reps do you have left in the tank? And this is something that I've had to fix with so many of my clients, because they're actually leaving 5, 6, 7, or 8 reps inside their lifts. So they're not pushing their bodies anywhere near what they're capable of. And this just basically means you're holding yourself back. So yes, you're consistent. Yes, you're showing up to your sessions week in, week out, but you're not actually seeing any progress because you're not willing to push yourself to the point where your form starts breaking down. You're fighting for your life in some of your reps. You're actually pulling ugly faces. Okay, fine, my forehead is full of Botox. There is a limit to how much I can pull a face right now, but that's okay. That's how I like it to be. And this is one of the things that I think holds more women back than anything else. It is that fear of progressive overload or just not knowing what it means. Ultimately, we need you to be closer to failure than 5 reps, which means you need no more than 5 good quality reps in the tank before you stop your set. If you're stopping with more than that left in your reserve tank, you are too far away from failure. So if I watch a set of your exercise and I don't see that your reps are starting to break down, they're starting to slow down, you're maybe needing a couple of seconds rest pause in between reps, say like 7, 8, and 9, then you're probably not training hard enough. And if you can start to dial up that intensity, you are going to see so much more progress because you're going to be working that bit closer to failure. And that's problem number one, not overloading enough, not being close enough to failure. Number 2 is spending too much time in the gym on essentially junk volume. And this is something that I was once guilty of. I used to have like 7, 8, 9 exercises in my training plan. But ultimately, you're not going to be able to work hard enough by completing that many different exercises. And now I much prefer to program my clients somewhere between 4 and 6, maybe at the absolute outset 4 and 7 exercises with 2 or 3 good quality working sets, rather than doing sets of 4, 5, sometimes even 6. You are gonna be able to work so much more intently, work better in terms of going closer to failure if you just do 2 or 3 hard sets per exercise and keep the amount of exercises that you're doing capped. You don't need loads of variations. You don't need loads of junk volume. What you need for the ideal training program is probably 5 to 6 different exercises that hit the whole of the area that you're working on. And for example, with my clients, I don't program like chest and shoulders or chest and triceps or back and biceps workouts. The majority of my clients are on full upper body splits. Yes, we might have a split that is more designed towards their back and their shoulder muscles, but I don't separate chest and triceps or back and biceps because we want really for you to train every muscle group 2 to 3 times a week in order to force it to adapt and grow. And if you're only training one body part or just 2 body parts per session, you're going to be leaving a lot of growth on the table, because if you do chest and shoulders on a Monday, well, you're not going to do it again until the next week. Whereas if we do full upper body twice a week, we can hit all of your major muscle groups twice a week as an absolute minimum. So this again is something that we want to fix. If you work with me, you will see that I primarily program upper and lower splits. I don't necessarily split muscle groups unless you are somebody who trains 4 or 5 times a week, in which case we might have a session that's more like glutes and delts focused, and then we might have another one that's more like quads and hamstrings focused, but that's because we're probably trying to get lower body in 3 times a week. So if we make sure that your sessions are succinct, you have just the exercises that you actually need, we take those sets close to failure and we make it so that in the 2 or 3 hard sets you are doing, that you are working pretty close to your limit, you are going to see much better progress. Another one that's slightly linked to the other two is you're holding back too many reps or too much capacity for your last set. So linking back to the previous 2 points, your first set should be your most challenging. You should go into your first working set of an exercise like that's the only set that you are doing. That's all I want you to think of. And again, I've spoken to so many women who are like, yeah, but if I've got 3 sets to do, I need to make sure that I can do all 3 sets, but you don't. We want set 1 to be the most intense, probably the heaviest weight, probably the most reps that you're going to do. So if you're doing a 100 kilo hip thrust and you hit 8 reps for set 1, you shouldn't be able to hit 8 reps again. If you can hit 8 reps again, you probably had a little bit more inside that first set. So kind of my ideal, if I look through your training logs, is to see you did 8 reps, 7 reps, 6 reps, because that means that as the fatigue is rising, your muscles are not capable of exerting the same amount of force that they did before. That means you've gone in at the right intensity inside that first session. So if you can start to make it so that every set you do, you act like it's the only one you've got to do, and that you don't save anything back for the later sets, you're already going to ramp up your physique progress. You're going to build more muscle mass. And these are the biggest points in terms of you going to the gym and being consistent, but actually building enough muscle mass. It's unsurprising that alongside the actual training technique, I also need to talk about body fat, because you can train as hard as you want in the gym, but for you to look like you train, you are probably going to want to see some muscle definition. And there is a limit to how much muscle definition we can see if our body fat levels are too high. Note, I do not say too high for you as a human, I just say too high versus us being able to see the definition that we want to see. So this is where we use strategic fat loss phases in order to chip away at a little bit of gained body fat so that we can see more muscle definition. And I'm going to insert a picture here. This is like my shoulder definition over the past 6 or 7 years. What you can see inside the first year is I didn't actually have that much muscle mass to begin with. I went through a process where I gained quite a bit of muscle mass over a couple of years, but my body fat percentage was still too high for me to be able to see the definition that I wanted. And all I've done is gradually increase my muscle mass via all of the points before, making sure that I only do the key exercises, making sure that I progressively overload, making sure that I'm treating every set like a fresh set, like I'm not trying to hold anything back. That's taken care of my training intensity. And then I've run strategic fat loss phases in order to chip away at body fat so that I can actually see that definition. Because it's no good you only focusing on fat loss if you want to quote unquote look like you train, because you cannot see what isn't there. And if you don't have enough muscle mass, you're not going to be able to see it. You're just going to look lean and flat. Whereas to see things like capped delts, pumped quads, like glute definition, you need to have a lot more muscle mass than you think, but you also need the right ratio of muscle mass to body fat so that you can actually see it. And this is why I use fat loss phases strategically with my clients. It's to be able to peel it away. It's not that they necessarily want to lose more weight, but it's when we gain muscle mass, we cannot solely gain muscle mass. We're always going to gain a little bit of body fat by virtue of being at maintenance or an ever so slight surplus. We can't choose to just gain muscle mass. A little bit of body fat is always like part of the puzzle. So when we then run an 8 to 12 week fat loss phase, we get to chip away at that body fat. So we then get to see more definition. And this is essentially the art of body recomposition, which I spoke about last week. So go and check out the previous video for more on the specifics of body recomposition. So once you've nailed your training intensity, you're being consistent, you're doing what you were before, like you're training your 4 times a week that you've been doing for years. You take on board the points that I've said about overload and making sure that you progress and making sure that your weights and reps are going up. You do all of that, right? Then it comes down to running strategic fat loss phases somewhere around 8 to 12 weeks. Get in, get done, get back out the other side. Don't fanny around. Like I would say for most of you, hitting that kind of like 500 to 700 a day deficit is going to be ideal. That's going to net you a loss of about 0.45 kilos a week as a minimum. You can then run an 8 to 12 week fat loss phase, lose somewhere between 4 and 7 kilos. And if you're already training consistently and it's not like you turn around and you're like, I have got an awful lot of body fat to lose, that will be enough to be able to do a first run, allow you to see some more muscle definition. You can then come back into maintenance, focus on holding steady, get focused on like progressively overloading again, and then you are going to see more definition and you are going to start to look more and more like you train. You need to make sure that out of your year, you are having more time in maintenance and focused on growing muscle than you are in fat loss. But depending on your start point, if you do have a lot of body fat to lose, then your fat loss phases might need to be a little bit longer, but that is absolutely a-okay because it's going to serve a purpose. And, you know, in my first year with my coach in 2019, I spent the majority of the time from February to December in fat loss. I think I had maybe 2 or 3 months out maximum. The rest of it was spent in fat loss and I lost just over 7 kilos, just in terms of like total scale weight balance. But all throughout that, I was focusing on the progressive overload. I was tracking my workouts. I was making sure that I was working close to failure so that, yes, okay, I quote unquote only lost 7 kilos. But in terms of how much body fat I lost and how much muscle I gained, it put me in a more favorable position, meaning that now my fat loss phase, I might lose 4 to 6 kilos. Like inside the last one I did, I lost about 4 kilos inside 7 weeks. It's just enough to chip it away. And I no longer need to do the stints where I'm trying to lose like 10 kilos at a time. But I'm spending more of my year in maintenance, in growing muscle, and in progressively overloading. And this is what I would fix if I had you in front of me and you said to me, I want to look like I left. That's the secret sauce. Now, obviously, if you do want to get to work with me, my one-to-one spaces are closed. However, you can come and join me inside my next 8-week intake of the Strong Girl Gang, which is my group training platform. Inside the Strong Girl Gang, we focus on the transformation needed. I will help you drop body fat, gain muscle, get a routine that you can stick to, build better habits around food. I will hold you accountable and you can absolutely see at least 3 to 5 kilos in body fat lost inside 8 weeks and see all of your lifts go up, because not only will you get a program that is designed to maximize the results that you can hit inside the least amount of time in the gym, because nobody has 2 hours a day to be spending in the gym, but I also go through your workouts and I help drive your progressive overload. The priority list is live. Spaces go live on Thursday, the 27th of August, and we start on the 7th of September. So you haven't got long to get your name on the priority list. If you do want to do that, the link is in the show notes. I will be back with you another time, but in the meantime, go have fun putting this into practice. And remember, my Instagram is below. So if this vlog or this video does throw up any questions whatsoever, just come chat to me.